Ten.
Stand by to take studio.
7, 6.
Stand by camera 1, mics 1 and 2.
3, 2, 1.
Take studio.
I'm your host, Eric Melnychuk.
And I'm Sydney Jones. On today's episode, Eric Melnychuk brings us the first round of many games he likes to call categories. As well, I take a look at the forum held at the St. Albert-Morinville riding election candidates, and William Doney took up to the streets to meet and speak to voters on their opinions. But first, here's our top story.
On Tuesday, April 16th, the Alberta provincial election was held at hundreds of voting stations across the province. One of these stations was located at the Morinville Alliance Church, and reporter Brad Bullock went to gauge the voters' reactions.
Tuesday, April 16th, saw Albertans take to the polls in our provincial election. This year's election saw record-breaking advanced voting numbers and a very high percentage of voter turnout. I talked with the voters about why it's important to come out and vote. We got some varying answers.
I think we all need to be heard. I think everybody has a right to stand up for what they believe in.
I don't know, everyone has their right to vote, right? So you might as well take your right?
Well, I think it's our right. Not everybody has that right over the world, and we can come and say what we want. So that's amazing that we should be able to come and vote.
I asked Katie and Simone if they had any issues that they'd like to see addressed in the Morinville-St. Albert riding. They believe there's a few things that should change.
I don't think there's anything specific, but I think there's a lot that needs to continue to change.
Well, for me, there is, definitely. One of them is for jobs and for our oil, and I also think that the schools are very important, and I really believe that parents should have the right to say what they think they want for their children.
When asked about what made this year's election different from ones past, and if there could be any lasting effects from the way the vote turns out, Katie, Albert, and Simone all had some strong answers.
Yeah, I think this one was a lot more difficult to make an actual decision on. It, between Jason Kenney and Notley.
Could be a big impact, yeah, because a lot of people don't like what's going on right now in Alberta, right? So there's not a lot of work. So if there's a certain party that can make a change in that, it'd be good.
Well, I think one of the reasons that it's so big this year, the last 4 years it hasn't been very good as far as I'm concerned, and I think that's the case with a lot of people. And so we're really hoping for a change coming up.
This year's provincial election saw the United Conservative Party win a majority government in the legislature. Here in the Morinville-St. Albert riding, Dale Nally, the UCP candidate, also won. We'll see how the next 4 years plays out for Alberta. For MCTV News, this is Bradford Bullock reporting.
To finally set in, and all the signs of snow and ice has disappeared. The weather looks to be brighter and warm. But here to confirm this theory is MCTV's own meteorologist, Eric Melnychuk.
Thank you, Sydney. Brad's in the back, so I'll be taking over. I'll try and do as best as I can. So first, let's take a look at the weather for Canada. It is -9 up in Iqaluit. Oh, that's Sydney. That's very nice going out there. That's our green screen. Currently waiting for the weather graphics to come back up. Oh, I guess we're moving on to Alberta. So up in Fort Mac, there are chances of thunderstorms at 13 degrees. Up in high level, it is 10 degrees with a little bit of cloud. Grand Prairie, it is 8 degrees up here. It is 10 degrees here in Edmonton. A little bit of rain, same thing as Red Deer, but it's 8 degrees there. In Jasper and Banff, it's pretty bad to be down there. It's raining and snowing, about 6 and 7 degrees. In Calgary, it is 11 degrees, and in Medicine Hat, it is 18 degrees. A little bit of cloud there. Let's take a look at your current conditions. It is 8 degrees here in Morinville with a little bit of cloud, relative humidity at 36%, with sunrise at 6:13 a.m. and sunset at 8:52 p.m. Let's take a look at your weekend forecast. On Thursday, it'll be 8 degrees, a little bit of cloud, very cloudy with a little bit of rain at the end of the week. It'll be 7 degrees on Friday, 6 degrees on Saturday and Sunday. Monday, it'll be 7 degrees. Tuesday, it'll be 9, and Wednesday, it'll be 8 degrees down there. And that's it. We'll take it back to you guys in the desk.
Thanks for the weather update, Eric. Coming up after the break, the newly elected MLA Dale Nally will be joining me in studio for a one-on-one interview. We will be back after these messages.
You guys want to hear a really cool story? Hey, Mr. Babstein, what about you?
Good thing I've got Will Be Gone.
We all know a William. Why not make him disappear from your life for an hour or more? Buy Will Be Gone for only $1 because we all know how annoying he can be. This bottle now comes with an upgraded nozzle, so you can spray all day. Get Will Be Gone now, the only MCTV product that actually works.
Wow, it sure is a lovely day outside. Ah! Where are you taking me? Let me go!
I haven't seen light since 1936. Please, save yourself.
Please, we need food. What is this place? Where am I? Why is it so dark in here? No! 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 Don't put your tools in the shed. They have feelings too. A message from MCTV News.
All right, so it doesn't look like anybody's doing news reports for next week's show, so I'm going to need each of you to do 5 so we can go to air.
What? Has this ever happened to you? Well, then you need the excuse slip.
Well, I have an excuse slip.
Well, this looks legitimate. All right, Jaden, I guess I'm going to need you to do 10.
Hey, wait, I know you've been having a hard time. Here, have my extra.
But I don't know how to use it.
Oh, dude, it's really easy. All you need to do is sign your name and write a reason why.
Okay, thanks.
Jaden, come here, please.
Yeah, Dad?
Go shovel the driveway, please.
I'd really love to do it, but I have an excuse.
That's nice. I have a better excuse.
Oh, come on. That's not even fair. The excuse slip. Now with a better version. Get yours now. Only 12 payments of $19.95.
With the election only a week behind us, we are very pleased to be joined in studio today by Dale Nally, member of the United Conservative Party, who was recently elected MLA for the Morinville-St. Albert riding. Mr. Darcy Owen's Social 30-1 class has prepared a series of questions for him which reflect the concerns of young adults in the community. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Sydney.
Yep. One of the biggest issues on the campaign trail was the economy, so let's talk jobs first. How do you hope to increase employment opportunities for your constituents?
Great question. On a macro level, we have 173,000 unemployed Albertans. That doesn't include the ones that have stopped looking for work. It's actually a job crisis right now, and I've often referred to it as being on the death spiral because it's tough to get off of. So we have to shock our economy, if you will, back to life. And one of the strategies that we have is very aggressive, and it's our job creation strategy. And our plan is to lower taxes for job creators. And that's going to do a couple of things. One, it's going to take companies that are currently doing business in Alberta and allow them to have more money in their pocket at the end of the day so that they can expand and create more mortgage-paying jobs for Albertans. But the second thing it's going to do is going to attract business to move back to Alberta because we lost $100 billion in investment. Of that $100 billion, $50 billion of it was non-resident investment. So that means when the money's gone, there's not even a footprint of it left. So if we want to get that money back or get those jobs back, we have to be aggressive in going out there and targeting those companies. So we have a very compelling offer that is going to make a lot of those businesses want to come back to Alberta, open up shop, and create jobs for Albertans. Now that's on a macro level. On a micro level, we've got some great things going. We just need to keep promoting them. And one is the Northwest Refinery. It's currently on phase 1, which is 50,000 barrels a day. We need to get it to phase 2, and then phase 3, which is 150,000 barrels a day. My first and foremost role as an MLA is to advocate on behalf of NWR and make sure that we get that project to phase 3, where it's producing 150,000 barrels a day, because we're talking upwards of almost 10,000 jobs.
Okay. One concern raised by our Social 30 class is the possibility of the UCP repealing the minimum wage hikes that were implemented by the NDP. How do you respond to this when these benefits may affect low-income earners this year?
So, and great question. You know, we are not against raising the minimum wage. You know, back 4 years ago. Our concern was we didn't want to raise it 50% over 3 years because that creates some negative impacts to the economy, and we've seen that. We've seen that businesses haven't been able to adjust. We've seen that people that rely on this money have actually been making less. They've been taking less money home because the service industry is a great example. They used to make the majority of their money in tips, and what's happened now is they're getting less hours. People are tipping less because the cost of food has gone up, and this last one is really interesting. But servers have always had, and bartenders have always had what's called a tip out, where they tip out money to the rest of the staff that are non-front facing, so the cooks and the dishwashers. And the rate of their tip outs has actually gone up as well. So they're making significantly less money. And the feedback that we have from them is that they would like to go back to a scenario where it was 3 years ago, where they were getting more hours and could make more tips. Now, we're not making a commitment on that. What we're saying is that's the feedback that we got. We like to collaborate, so we're actually going to get experts together. We're going to get subject matter experts, people from the industry, economists, and we're going to have them study the scenario and see what is going to be the best scenario for Alberta's economy. Because we're not going to repeal the minimum wage. It's going to remain at $15 an hour, but we are going to look at, is a graduated wage in the service industry the right thing to do or not? I don't know for a fact if it is, and so we want subject matter experts to study it and tell us. Regarding people that are under the age of 18, that's actually our highest unemployment rate right now is with youths, 17 and under. And their unemployment rate is over 11%, and it's never been this high because businesses always embraced hiring high school students for part-time jobs. But they're having trouble getting work because if you can hire a 16-year-old for $15 an hour, or you can hire a 30-year-old for the same money who's got experience, you're often going to go with a person with experience. So it's actually had a negative impact on young people. And really what we're concerned about, Sydney, is just getting Albertans back to work.
Let's move on to the education, which I understand is an area of passion for you, as you have a master's degree in education.
Yeah.
Education funding is always a concern for us.
Yeah.
What is the UCP plan? Is it increased spending, decreased spending, and how will this affect the quality of education in Alberta?
Great question. So we have said all along that we are going to either maintain or increase funding. And the reason we add the increase is because there are some scenarios where schools will see some extra funds. And one of the examples are rural schools. And when I say rural, I mean Morinville, and I mean the schools in Sturgeon County around. And the issue is, Sydney, that we have the same funding formula for urban and rural schools. So a brand new school in Calgary that's got twice as many students as a rural school in Alberta has the same funding model. Yet the urban school has higher reserve funds. Sometimes the rural school doesn't even have a reserve fund. The rural schools are older, they're more expensive to operate, their operational maintenance expenses are higher. So by having the same formula for funding, we actually are disadvantaging rural schools. So what we have decided to do is we are going to address this by changing the funding formula for rural schools to address the unique challenges that they have, so we can actually get enough money into the schools so that teachers and students are able to promote a quality learning environment. And I'll tell you, there's a $7 million infrastructure deficit in the schools in our riding. That's a substantial deficit. And so by adjusting the formula for these schools is going to go a long way in getting rid of that deficit.
It was also announced by your party last month that they would seek to eliminate Bill 24, which requires school principals to grant student requests to form GCAs and require private schools to publicly make available policies to protect LGBTQ students. Can you comment about the rationale of this decision by your party?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question, and I know that it's attracted a lot of attention, and unfortunately, Sydney, there's been a lot of misinformation. So we are going to be going back to the original educational legislation that was put forward in 2014, and I believe it was Bill 12. And this was legislation that the PC government put forward that protected GSAs. It implemented GSAs because we didn't have them at that point, or at least not very many of them. So that was Bill 12. The PC government put it forward in 2014. The NDP government, or the NDP opposition at the time, actually voted in favor of the legislation. And so they were going to implement in 2015. For whatever reason, they chose not to, and they went a different route. So we're going to be going back to that original legislation because we think it's good legislation. And incidentally, not only did the NDP vote in favor of it in 2014, it's the same legislation that exists in Ontario right now. And when Catherine Wynne put this legislation in that protected GSAs, she was hailed as the hero of LGBTQ2+ rights. We announced that we're going to implement that same legislation. That's already on the books. We're just going to implement it. And of course, there was a huge uproar. And in fact, there was a lot of misinformation, and so I would just like to clarify the big difference between our two policies. Both parties agree that outing LGBTQ plus 2 teens is not cool. It's not something that we support. We think that teens have a right to have a safe, nurturing environment, whether it's at home and at school. They are entitled to a peer network where they should have that safe environment to be able to express themselves. So we're not on side with outing kids. The difference is, under the NDP legislation, they will not out gay teens, but it's like there's a concrete wall. So if there's a significant safety issue, and that teen has mental health issues or is suicidal, that concrete wall stops them from telling the parents about what's going on. Our position is, we're not going to out gay kids because that's not cool. But we don't have a concrete wall there, so if there are mental health issues, or heaven forbid if the child is suicidal, we need to engage the parents, because that's a serious issue and we need to put the child's safety first. Assuming that there are no serious issues like that, we will not be informing parents. From our perspective, we don't tell parents when your kids join the chess club. We're not going to be telling them when they join the GSA.
Many Albertans are concerned about some of the controversies surrounding the UCP. During Premier Kenney's victory speech on election night, he called Albertans patient and fair-minded. Yet some of the elected members of the UCP caucus have previously made controversial comments. Are you worried that this will tarnish your party, what your party is hoping to achieve economically? And do you stand by those statements as a member of the newly formed government?
Here's what I can tell you. We had some unfortunate comments. We weren't the only ones, by the way. Some of the other parties also had some candidates that made some unfortunate comments. Here's the difference. We didn't talk about it when they did it because we talked about the issues. We said all along, we're not running a negative campaign. We're not going to make this a personal campaign, and we're not going to wage a personal campaign of destruction and attack candidates, and we've stuck to that. And so when one of the other candidates said inappropriate things, it was a one-day news cycle. If it was a UCP candidate that said something unfortunate, it ended up being a 6-day news cycle. Now, I can say that a number of those candidates that did say inappropriate things were removed from the party. They were not allowed to represent the United Conservative Party banner, because quite frankly, they damaged our brand. As you know, not everyone was removed, and there was a scenario. It's difficult for me to talk about that because he's a colleague. I will say that he said some things that were inappropriate. He acknowledged that. He embarrassed himself with his comments, but he has acknowledged that they were wrong. He does not stand by them, and that certainly does not represent the values of our party. And I will just tell you more about myself, because diversity and inclusion is important to me. I was the co-chair for Diversity Edmonton. Diversity is something that I value. I marched in the Pride Parade last June, and I don't mean I attended, but I actually marched in the Pride Parade because that's something that it resonates with me and is important. I was planning on going back in June to march again, but you've probably heard that there may not be a Pride Parade in Edmonton. But diversity and inclusion is a core pillar of our party. 40% of our new candidates were women, and 16 of those candidates were new Canadians. And I'm pretty proud of that diversity. And that wasn't diversity that we achieved by appointing candidates. That was diversity by new Canadians, by women putting up their hand and saying that they were going to run and waging hard-fought nomination contests and actually winning them by outworking their opponents. I mean, we're very proud of the slate of candidates that we've offered and the diversity within it. And we want to be recognized by the breadth of our team, and not by the comments of one or two individuals, because they absolutely do not represent the brand when they say inappropriate things.
Okay, last tough question. Premier Kenney also reached out to other provinces, including Quebec, stating, "Let us work together to strengthen our shared prosperity in the Canadian Federation." How do you and your party reconcile this statement when Premier Kenney also threatened to shut off oil to British Columbia?
Great question. Here's what I'll tell you about Jason Kenney. He is an extremely smart man, and he's also very collaborative. And I was fortunate. I actually was on the United Conservative Party Roundtable for Education. So I was there when we were developing the education policy, and I got a chance firsthand to see him work. And he's not dictatorial. His approach is very collaborative. He likes to bring in experts, subject matter experts, and he likes to engage them and hear what they talk about. So he's very collaborative. And I expect Jason Kenney is going to want to work collaboratively with all the premiers of the different provinces. But I can also tell you this about Jason Kenney, is that as much as he's willing to be collaborative and as much as he's willing to reach across the country to work with other premiers, if they are going to stand in the way of us getting our national resource to market, he is going to stand up and fight. And as I said before, that if that involves turning off the tap, which is the nuclear option, I know he will do it. But his first priority is to first attempt to collaborate and reach out to them and work with them. And that's our preferred approach.
Okay, that was our last question. Thank you very much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you. Coming up next, as part of the election campaign, my guest Dale Nally, along with 4 other candidates, faced off at an all-Cannabis Forum held at Cardiff Hall on the evening of April 9th. Many of the issues affecting the region were discussed in a moderated format. Let's take a look.
Past Tuesday, April the 9th, an event was held for the candidates of the St. Albert-Morinville constituency at Cardiff Hall. This forum was a chance for many constituents to assess and understand what each party stood for and what these parties could ultimately do for their municipalities and communities. Although campaigning can prove to be difficult, these candidates agree that so far the responses that they have received have been worth the work.
I have got the occasional door slammed in my face once they see the Green Party of Alberta hoodie on me. But for the most part, a lot of people are really agreeing with the values that the Green Party represents and a lot of the ideas we have.
Well, they're very positive right now. As I'm out knocking on doors and meeting people, extremely positive given what the Nally government has done in the last 4 years. Everything that they're doing, rebuilding, diversification, climate change agreements, Made in Alberta plans, it's extremely positive.
We're very excited for Alberta to go independent. It's time we stop looking after other provinces and we start taking care of Albertans first.
Throughout the forum, one of the most talked about subjects was job creation as well as the economy. These issues, as stated by many of the candidates, were the most important in building a better Alberta. But how will they begin this route to a brighter future?
So what we have to do is we have to be aggressive in targeting those job creators by offering them tax breaks and tax cuts to get them back to Alberta so they can open up businesses, expand, and hire Albertans for mortgage-paying jobs.
Well, we've got a very creative jobs and diversification plan. So we're looking at incentives that'll bring the screen industry back to Alberta so that we can have jobs in the motion picture industry, e-gaming, bring those kind of companies to Alberta.
We do promote rapid transition to renewable energy, so that right there is going to provide a lot of jobs.
What we're about is separation, and what that does is we're going to stop paying those monies to the federal government. All that money comes back to Albertans, and we're going to put that back into their pockets, which now creates an equal spread for all financial gains for every person.
Well, like I said, Rachel Notley put forth in the last 4 years alone 267 new initiatives that I'm extremely impressed with. I think she's done a remarkable job. And the work has only started. It's only been 4 short years for the NDP government. We have so much more to do, and we will get it done. We're going to start to really see the results of what we've done.
Another key factor in this election, as it is in many others, is how the decisions and solutions made by the government are going to affect the province in the long run. These candidates have a few ideas as to what they would do to enable Alberta to become more prosperous and achieve stability.
Well, if we're successful in implementing our plan on economic diversification, it's going to make sure that we're not on the so-called oil and gas roller coaster, so that we don't have these huge dips when oil prices go south. And so that's why economic diversification is so important, and that's why people need to look for a party that has a solid plan for economic diversification.
If we continue in the path that we're currently going in with pipelines and oil and industry as our only focus, we're going to be the last ones to kind of transition and to make things happen. So obviously our economy is it's going to be stagnant. If we transition, the sooner we do it, we could actually be energy leaders.
Well, listen, it's going to get Albertans back to work. I was on someone's doorstep the other day. It was a single mother, and she had to take her bottles back to the depot to feed her family. So any type of job creation is going to benefit the constituents in this riding, short-term and long-term.
Again, I keep going back to diversification, but the money that we're bringing into this province in investment and what we're doing in jobs and refining our own oil and getting our oil to Tidewater is just going to grow and grow.
So starting with the oil and gas sector, we're going to supercharge that, bringing 170,000 jobs back, and then we're able to recreate new resources, thus promoting new jobs.
With the campaign trail almost over and the election on April 16th, we would like to encourage everyone to attend their local voting stations and vote for who they'd like to represent their constituency. For MCTV News, this is Sydney Jones reporting.
Welcome back. Here to talk about the latest scores in NHL, NBA, and MLB is our MCTV sports analyst, Sydney Jones.
Thanks, Eric. In the NHL last night, 2 first-round playoff series were decided. The Maple Leafs were suffering a serious case of déjà vu when they lost their second first-round series in as many years in a Game 7 to Boston Bruins. Final score of 5-1. Up next for the Bruins are the Columbus Blue Jackets, who won their first-round series 4-0 over the Tampa Bay Lightning. The San Jose Sharks kept an amazing third-period comeback with Barclay Goodrow's overtime winner to take the series over the Golden Knights 4-3. They will play the Avalanche in round 2. The NBA playoff actions also continues. The Toronto Raptors won their first-round series against the Orlando Magic 4-1 with a convincing 115-96 victory. The 76ers advanced to round 2 with a 122-100 win over the Nets. Portland took their series over Oklahoma City in a dramatic fashion with a buzzer-beating three-pointer. Final score of 118-115. And the Denver Nuggets are now 1 win away from the second round with a 108-90 win over the San Antonio Spurs. In the MLB, the Giants edged out the Blue Jays 7-6. Washington doubled Colorado 6-3. The New York Mets blanked the Philadelphia Phillies 9-0. Oakland pounded Texas 11-5, and the Seattle Mariners lost the road to the San Diego Padres 3-6. Throughout the years, MCTV has been known to make the videos that are lighthearted and fun. Among these videos are many game shows hosted by our students. Now, there haven't been many in recent years, but our reporter Eric Melnychuk is seeming to start up the trend once again with categories. Let's take a look.
Welcome to Categories, the game where 2 people are put together for some high-flying word action. I'm your host, Eric Melnychuk, and let's get right into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first round of Categories. We are here with... Willow. And?
Caitlin.
All right, so as you 2 know, the first person to drop out is a loser, and the other one gets bragging rights. Are you 2 ready?
Yes.
The first, the category is brands of soda.
Sprite. Cream soda.
Root beer.
Coke.
Dr. Pepper.
Ginger ale.
Pepsi.
Oh, you're out.
Ah, you suck.
Congratulations, you're a winner. We're here for the second round of Categories. We're here with...
Dorian. Eric.
All right, David told the rules, so let's get into this. You guys ready for your category?
Yep.
Oreo flavors.
Mint. Double stuff. Normal.
That's not a flavor, you're out.
Oh, no!
Okay, you win. Congratulations. We're here for round 3. We're here with...
Dayton.
And?
Miss King.
All right, so these 2 have been told the rules. Miss Dayton won the coin toss, so she'll be going first. It's kind of weird, because I'm pretty sure everyone on this side went first so far. That's right. So your guys is... Fair enough. The category is elements on the periodic table.
Oh God. Copper. Silver. Manganese. Gold. Oxygen. Iron. Helium. Zinc. Neon. Hydrogen.
3, 2, 1. No, you're out. We will see you guys back for round 4. Welcome back to round I Stopped Counting. It's either 3, 4, or 5. Anyway, we're here with...
Mr. Hanks.
And...
Mrs. Richopo.
These 2 have been told the rules, and they know what to do. You guys ready for your category?
Yes.
Yeah.
Staff and MCHS.
Oh. Wiley.
Mr. Hanks.
You're going.
Battistine.
Mrs. Richopo.
Mrs. King.
Mrs. Lefebvre.
Mrs. Cormier.
Mrs.
2.
Chittick.
Oh.
Mrs. Christensen.
Mrs. McDonald.
Mrs. Hartman.
Mrs. Rogers.
Mr. Bodner.
Mrs. Borchert.
Mr.
3, 2.
Fiddler.
Oh, that's good.
Mr. Michael.
Mr. Owen.
Mr. Pietraszewski.
Oh, I was gonna try to say that one. Mr. Maslick.
Oh, he's good.
Oh, Mr. Lassard.
Mr. Rovine.
Mrs. Willows.
Miss Widow Williams.
Mr. Bodner.
That's already been said, you're out.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay. Oh, you won. Oh, sugar.
That's it for this episode. Make sure you join us next time because we'll get more contestants. And after that episode, we will put all the winners against each other for the final round to see who is the true categories winner. See you there. And now let's take a look at the daily announcements for the week of April 22nd. Training for the 28th Annual Roger Champagne Memorial Bike Trip will be held on Saturday, April 27th at 9:30 sharp. For more information, contact Mr. Battistine. For people attending the 3rd Annual Bikeathon next week, please start bringing your money for the event. Contact Ms. Guerreau for more info. The Skills Alberta Field Trip will be held Wednesday, May 8th at the Edmonton Expo Center. Permission forms will be available in the office. Talk to Mr. Maslick for more information. For all these and other school events, keep connected by listening to the daily announcements in Block 2 or by logging on to the school's website at www.mchs.gsacred.ab.ca or by listening or by following the school on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. As well, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel by searching MCTV Morinville.
During the campaign trail for many of the candidates in our constituency, reporter William Doney took to Morinville streets to find out voters' opinions on the election so far and what they'd like to see. Let's take a look at this report.
With the Alberta provincial election less than 24 hours away, I took to the streets of Morinville to see how many voters are going to be heading to the ballots this Tuesday.
Well, actually, I am going to vote. I've looked at all the parties, and the reason why it's important, if you don't vote, you don't have a voice. And you need a voice in order to tell politicians what is important to the people of Alberta and why it's important, and that's why you vote.
Because, people fought for that freedom, so it's a right that we have, and I think you should use it.
I think it's very important because as an ex-soldier, retired soldier for 37 years, I've been in a lot of countries where they have no freedom to vote. So it's very, very important that people get out and vote because you have that freedom in Canada.
With various issues impacting Albertans, we asked voters what they thought the biggest issues were facing them this election and how they would sway their vote.
Okay, well, I feel that it's jobs, and I feel it's our oil industry has been let down by the present government, and also, the Liberals in Ottawa, and there hasn't been a lot of work done towards that. And if we look at the oil industry, it provides all of the jobs for Albertans. Not all of the jobs, but a great many of the jobs. And people across Canada benefit when the oil industry is running because they get money for schools, they get money for hospitals, they get equalization payments, and I can't understand why the rest of Canada doesn't understand that.
Right now, the biggest thing for Alberta, I think, is the oil and gas sector, the energy sector. It's been neglected by Canada as far as I'm concerned, and that's the biggest thing that's making me want to vote.
Probably the fact that we're in serious debt. So we need a plan on how to get out of that debt. So we need spending under control and ways to increase our revenue.
As Albertans look towards and prepare for the future, they must also leave the future generations with a proactive plan. We asked voters what they thought the best solutions were long term.
Well, I think our oil industry will always be an area where we need to invest a lot of time, money, and expertise into focusing on making our natural resources more green and taking ways of getting that oil out of the ground and making it more green. And that, yes, that's very, very important. But I don't agree with the carbon tax. I think it's wrong, right? It's just a money grab. And they say, well, we're going to give it back to you. Well, if they're going to give it back to you, why take it in the first place?
Okay, we have to watch about the environment because there is an actual environment effect on oil and gas and all that, but we have to find better ways to do it. So that's my big term, is how the environment is going to change over the years, and hopefully it changes sooner than later.
We'll probably trust the leader who's going to be able to take us to that next level, get us out of debt. Do I trust Rachel? Do I trust Kenney? So it'll just be a matter of, for me, who I trust.
As voting for the election ends tomorrow, the candidates must wait and see what the people have decided. For MCTV News, this is William Doney reporting.
And that's it for another episode of MCTV News. Make sure to join us next week when Ethan Boissonneau brings us a look at the Registered Apprentice Program. Skylar Brossino brings us a piece on the New Orleans silent auction. Robert Bishop shows us how much MCHS staff and students know know album covers by famous music artists. And finally, Liam Miller shows us how students get their education using only their computers. All this and your 7-day forecast on the next episode of MCTV News.
So, in case you were wondering, the interview with newly elected MLA Dale Nally has been edited to fit our time crunch on the show. For the complete interview, you can go onto our YouTube channel by searching MCTV Morinville. From all of us at MCTV News, I'm Sydney Jones.
And I'm Eric Melnychuk. Thanks for tuning in. That's my line.